Detroit, because that's how the beetle got to North America. It was brought in by a Chinese freighter that was bringing in, I don't know, I think they were bringing in grapes or something like that, or some type of commodity, but the wooden pallets were infected by the beetle. And that's how the beetle got into Detroit first, and then it jumped Lake Michigan into Windsor. That's how the beetle got here. So again, I see that beetle as a direct attack, an infringement on native rights, simply because it's going to wipe out a species, black ash and white ash, that has a very strong ceremonial and cultural aspect to our society, to our First Nation. We're going to lose that species. Thank God with science today, there is the possibility, there's seed collection going on now, there's a repository of seeds, but nobody knows if those seeds are going to last 20 years, or if they're going to last 30 years. The technology, the cooling systems that they use now, nobody knows if they're actually going to last long enough. Will they last 3 generations? Because that's what they figure it's going to take this beetle to be eradicated out of New Brunswick. Is the first thing they got to do is eat all the ash, kill all the ash, and then hopefully eat themselves out of house and home and die off. So nobody really knows if the black ash tree, or any ash tree in New Brunswick, is going to survive for the next generation. So because of the commerce of this country, is totally wiping out an important aspect of our culture. And this is not the first time. The Dutch elm disease, an introduced species. The beech cankers on the beech trees. Caribou's gone. Wolf's gone. Cougar's gone. Species under threat right now. Salmon's almost gone. I actually caught a salmon there the other day, November 5th, because I fished the commercial bass. I got the exploratory license in Eel Ground to fish the bass. I don't know if any you drive across the Anderson Bridge, you've seen that trap just above the bridge? It's one of my traps. So anyways, there's an experiment. The researchers now are experimenting with salmon. It's called CASS, Community to Save the Salmon of the Future. There was 50 behind a barrier in Mill Stream. That, of course, is an Irvin UNB project. No consultation with First Nations. Not even making First Nations aware of this experiment, but yet it's going to go in a river that is very important for our food, ceremonial, and cultural being, because we have a food license. So anyways, they said they're not releasing them in the river because they didn't consult. Well, guess what? November 5th, I caught a tag salmon in my trap net at the Anderson Bridge site. And we're told by these researchers and by industry and by government, we're not releasing them. And when I showed them the picture, I had it on the phone here, when I showed them the picture and the purple tag, they use a purple tag, CASTUNB at Irvin.com. Should have seen the look on their face. So I don't know what the chiefs are going to do about that. But they said I was going to die anyways. But it's in the river. And if you want to see one ugly looking salmon, I'll show you the picture when I'm done here.
I think it turned off itself.
Yeah, I think this here went up, eh? I heard.
American chestnut is another one. Right?
Yeah, and butternut.
And butternut.
Butternut's another one. Very important species. But no, you want to see a picture of an ugly salmon. We call it the frankenfish, franken salmon. That's what we're calling it. But what an ugly, ugly fish. But yet this is supposed to be the salmon of the future. And I don't know how they can justify doing that to the Miramichi River system.
Where did they get the genetics?
I think there's a case of about.
Well, what they done, they got these smoke reels up on the headwaters. And so they catch the small smolts as they're going out, or the fries.
So they're wild?
They're wild,
Okay.
but then they put them in a controlled environment for roughly 3 years. And they feed them, just accelerate their growth. That's what they're doing. They're accelerating the growth. And,
Or what?
pardon?
Warming them?
They're keeping them in a warm environment. They're keeping them inside and everything like that. But if you look at the fish, my God, stub nose look like a freaking miniature dolphin. Don't even look like a salmon anymore. But like I said, for those who want to see it, I'll show you the pictures are on my phone there later, because this was just this November 5th. But what's interesting, I don't know when research is going to catch up with local knowledge. And it doesn't have to be just indigenous knowledge. Just people who, because if you talk to our elders, we're eventually going to be all indigenous to this land. You get enough generations here, you eventually become indigenous to Canada. You know, it eventually happens. It just happens, our indigenous goes back 10,000 years. Other people's indigenous only goes back 500 years right now. So eventually, another 10,000 years go by, your ancestors would be considered indigenous too. But it's a timeline, right? So anyways, what they do, and I don't understand why they don't listen. You see all these nice public programs or these awareness programs going up where the kids at the elementary schools are releasing salmon into the river. It's nice. It's nice to see. But they clip the adipose fin on every one of these as a sign of trying to measure if they come back. This may sound funny, but I'm a person who lived on the Miramichi River, and don't laugh too hard at this, but I used to get wet from the inside and the outside, because I was still in diapers when I was on that river. My father had me on that river when I was 6 months old. And I fished my entire life. So in the 56 years I've been on this earth, I have yet to see a grilt or a salmon come back in the Miramichi River with the adipose fin clipped. Not one yet. And I've seen a lot of salmon in my days. I got 600 in one day when the salmon were plentiful. That's how many I've seen a lot of salmon. But with all those efforts with respect to the salmon, to try to save the salmon, like I said, I have yet to see one come back with an adipose fin clipped. So, makes you wonder. But a lot of our elders will always say, if you want nature to rebound, there's one thing that you can do to make sure it happens. And that is to take out the human factor of the equation. You remove the human, regardless of your ethnic background or whatever, remove the human, Mother Nature will heal. Mother Nature will look after herself. Mother Nature will bring the salmon back. Mother Nature will make, in Miramichi River's case, Mother Nature will balance the imbalance between the striped bass and everything else, because right now the wolf of the river is going wild in Miramichi, and that's the striped bass. They're killing everything. That's why they gave me the exploratory license to deal with it. Okay, we're back up. What's going on here? Getting over here.
What's the estimated population of the striped bass currently?
It depends on who you ask right now, because DFO don't have a clue. The reason why I say this, I couldn't make it to a meeting last week, but Devin went, Jim Ward went, and my brother Les went. They're the head of part of the ACFI commercial DFO liaison communication team around the striped bass. Because of the two traps that I had in the river this year, DFO first of all said they never seen such detailed numbers come to them before until this past year. How can DFO estimate the number of bass where they have their research trap, say right here, right in this area? We have the commercial trap 300 feet above it. They're catching 40 fish, we're catching 1,500 fish, bass. And so the equation they used are based on that site. And the equation that they use, the formula that they use to estimate the counts is based on that trap that's in the river for 1 month during May, during the spawning season. And if those numbers are 10 times, almost 12 times less than what we're catching, and they're getting numbers as high as 1.2 million, well, apply that formula to our trap, and it puts the numbers up to 6.5 million fish in that river. And then we go right from May, as soon as the ice leaves, right till I just pulled the traps out, and the ice was forming this winter, November 8th. I just took the traps out maybe 2 weeks ago. And we're still catching 1,000 fish a day in that trap above the bridge. During the summer months, they said there was no bass in the river during the summer months. On average, from end of July to the 1st of September, the end of October, we're catching 600 every 2 days. So the fish is in the river all year round. And they're indiscriminate eaters. They'll eat anything, anytime, anyhow. But they say they're not eating salmon. You know, I don't know how anybody could go by a fish and buy, well, that's a salmon. See that one? Oh, there's a trout. Grab it. I can't see how that logic can be. I don't think they're that intelligent, but I don't know. I'm not a fish. But some of the, when you see some of the activities where you see videos of them taking ducklings right off the surface of the water, you'll see a family of loons going with about 6 or 7 little ducklings there. You watch them go, they finally make it back to shore, there's only one little one left. Just eating them. And the same, I was up there getting my lobster boat ready there for Gasper fishing one year, and I could hear this sound. I said, gee, somebody taking a shower outside? You could get this. I never thought too much of it, but it kept going and kept going and kept going. 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Walk down to the shore. Here's the smelts, the spring run of smelts, trying to get out of the water for about 400 meter stretch, and the bass were just unbelievable. I wish I had my phone with me, I would have videotaped it, but unbelievable. And of course, a lot of people say, well, that's because the mill's gone. A lot of life back in the river. It's not. It wasn't because the mill was gone, because those smelts used to feed the black salmon coming out. Now a lot of the fishermen fishing like the black salmon, the spring salmon coming out of the rivers, they don't report any smelts upriver. So the smelts are not even making it upriver, so the black salmon going out can feed on them. So they're not even making it upriver. You know, a lot of the things around forestry, you always hear these things about how accreditation is important, how leadership and community support is needed. You need your champions. You need somebody to spearhead this. You need somebody to, to really pursue it through. You need to consider operating as one, like especially for our First Nations. Right now, because of these 5.3% allocations, we operate as single communities. One community, because they only got a population of 70 people, has 2,000 cubic meters. What can you do with 2,000 cubic meters, really? But then you got other communities like the Elsipogtog First Nation. They got 40,000 cubic meters. So they could do a little more. They might be able to buy a porter, buy a truck, and stuff like that. One of the things we're advocating for is consolidate. Right now, if you put the 15 First Nations together, it's 250,000 cubic meters. For the Mi'kmaq communities, it's roughly 180,000 cubic meters. It definitely opens up your bargaining power when you deal with industry to get a better price if you have a higher volume. So we're talking about consolidating our allocations for a start. We're also talking about, actually, part of the meeting today was around License 5. We're actually going after License 5. We're going after the allocations that are not happening, that there's nothing happening with respect to some of the allocations, like the recent fire at Newcastle Lumber is one, Riverstone in the Maryshire areas. There's 2 allocations sitting there, nothing's happening to them. So we're talking about going after those to build our economy, build First Nation economy, create more jobs. Now, I say First Nations, but when I say First Nations, I talk about the communities as a whole, and that's the surrounding communities, because we are small. First Nations are small, and we don't have a lot of the expertise needed to go forward.